describe the plan that you have for either the portion of the Gateway area, for the city of Compton, or for the Compton watershed. What are the specific plans you have now, or what are the planning processes that you're undertaking?
Thank you all for joining this morning. Let me first begin just by saying this is a great time in the city of Compton. As you all probably traveled here, you notice that there are a number of development opportunities and activities going on. And prior to joining the city, I would attend the Planning Commission and I would attend the city council meetings. And I was often moved by the fortitude and the sheer drive and motivation of one person. And she happens to be with us today, and that's Councilwoman Yvonne Arsenault. For those of you who have attended the council meeting, there's probably not a council meeting where she does not focus on the Compton Creek and the importance of the city getting involved in actively redeveloping it. So I just want to recognize her for a moment, if I could ask her to stand. And we want to just thank you for your leadership and your continued support. In addition to that, I have with me Anna Fernandez, who is our assistant planner. Anna, can you please stand? Anna is going to be responsible for implementing the Compton Creek Garden Master Plan, which the city approved in 2006. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not recognize those Compton residents. So Compton residents, can you please stand? These are the individuals that are ultimately going to benefit from this creek that we are developing. What I want to specifically talk to you about this morning is the city's proactive approach to actually bring forth the development recommendations and the implementation of the Compton Creek Master Plan, Garden Master Plan. This was a collaborative effort. MRCA, a consultant, and the city were involved and engaged in a year-long activity to bring forth recommendations in terms of cleaning up the creek, making sure that we can restore the natural habitat, and also to develop ways and methods whereby we can ensure of public access through the way of the creation of pocket parks and neighborhood parks, a multi-purpose trail, enhanced crossings. And one project that has become a passion of mine is the creation of outdoor classrooms. Since the plan was created in 2006, there was a little bit momentum on the city's part in terms of actual implementation. And when I learned about it and I had a conversation with the councilwoman about it, it was clear that we needed to take a more proactive approach. So I volunteered to identify a staff person that would actually take the plan and begin implementing the recommendations. The councilwoman, with the assistance and the approval of the remaining council members, appropriated for this fiscal year approximately $575,000 to do the implementation. Part of the problem in the past is that we really didn't have the personnel to carry out the responsibilities matched with the funding that was available. So now that that is actually in place, we're moving forward. We convened a series of meetings over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks to really discuss what we were going to tackle. Now you can imagine this plan outlines in years, the first and second year, some of what we call our initiated projects. And what I want to briefly discuss with you today are the actual first phase projects that we're going to initiate. This initiative has been kicked off from the city, and this will include the identification of approximately 10 pocket parks. Prior to this week, last week actually, on Friday, I wanted to experience the park as we began to do this implementation. So I stopped my car at Rosecrans, right where the park intersects at Rosecrans and crosses, and I wanted to just walk down the trail that's existing there. One of the things that frightened me, I'm a runner, so I like to have these trails, but one of the things that most frightened me as I was walking down the trail was that there were neighbors that have their dogs, and big dogs, that were aggressive as I was walking by, minding my own business. In one instance, the dog jumped on top of its doghouse. So it was literally about a half a foot away from the fence. So naturally thinking, this dog could literally leap and then attack me, and I wouldn't be here to do this presentation today. Fortunately, that did not happen, but I did make note of it and noted, we're really going to have to take a holistic approach in terms of how we're going to develop the park. So we identified pocket park locations, but one of our recommendations, and it wasn't necessarily included in phase one, is to really look at working with our adjacent property owners and actually providing them with some fencing. If you've traveled down the trail in particular, you notice that the fencing in some areas is sagging on one side of the park or sagging on the people's property lines. So we had an internal meeting to discuss that we're looking at a particular type of fencing that we are going to pay for and install for our neighbors. The fortunate part is the councilwoman is already doing this in her district. And so we have the framework to do that. And so we're going to be meeting with the neighbors shortly and begin to identify areas where we're going to actually implement and provide the fencing. This fencing is going to be of a material that can promote vegetation, vines growing, and we want to provide a natural setting for the area. And if people should actually have their pets there, have a discussion with how they maintain and keep them, because we always want to make sure that the public has access. We have identified, as I mentioned before, a number of opportunities to create pocket parks. Some of these parks, as I've looked at the plan, really are no wider than 2 feet. So we're going to have to go back and do a reevaluation to see if it's really feasible. We're looking at more larger areas where we could actually have individuals to have a public gathering. But in our quick analysis, we think we can create anywhere between 7 to 10 additional neighborhood parks. Looking at enhancing the current trail, as I was walking down the trail, I noticed that in certain areas the trail is actually not paved or the trail is not striped. Part of what we're going to use our current funding for is to make sure that we can fully stripe the trail, delineate the side for cyclists and pedestrians, and then work out a strategy to also incorporate our equestrian community. In addition to that, there is, because the Compton Creek covers approximately 10 miles within the city. So as you can imagine, there are a number of particular streets that it intersects and crosses. But we have, in some instances, no denotations of crosswalks. So we're looking at working with our Public Works Department for the city, for the county, and for Caltrans to identify the appropriate methods to do the crosswalking. We're scheduling meetings with those agencies later this month, to ensure that we can actually move forward on doing that. That's an immediate need right now. It's a public safety, health, and welfare issue. We want to promote the park, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the people who are driving to and from are not hitting our pedestrians and are hitting our cyclists as they're trying to cross the streets. Mrs. Arsenault has a liaison, Denise Clark, and Denise had thought about the accessibility requirements. And sometimes when we are physically able people, we always forget, or we tend to forget, those that have limited capacity. And so she says, well, Derek, as you're doing phase one, think about those individuals that have mobility issues. And we thought, you're absolutely right. We need to provide better accessibility for those that have mobility issues, the visually impaired, those that may have a loss of limbs, those that are wheelchair bound, whatever the issue is, we need to really address that. So we're looking at making sure that we provide ramp access. We're looking at providing the visual cues, or the cues that we would need so that a person who may be blind can use the park, and he or she can have the opportunity to know where he or she is traveling as they're going through the route.